On our third anniversary, I cooked a full French dinner, but my husband never came home. When I called, his mistress picked up and said, "Who are you?" "He's asleep. Call back tomorrow." So I emptied the house and walked away. He collapsed when he saw the signed divorce papers. I still remember the searing pain, the kind that steals your breath and makes your world tilt on its axis. It was our third wedding anniversary, a day meant for celebration, but instead, it became the night I truly understood what betrayal felt like. I stood at the cinema entrance, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, watching the clock hand crawl. 7 o'clock came and went. Then 7:30. Samuel was nowhere. A cold dread seeped into my bones. I just knew he was with Alice again. Defeated, I walked back into our home, the candlelit dinner I'd so lovingly prepared mocking me. The wine, meant for joy, became my bitter companion. I drank until the world blurred, until the pain dulled. Late that night, I dialed his number, desperate for an explanation. But it wasn't Samuel's voice that answered. Instead, a syrupy sweet purr filled my ear. "Who is this?" "Samuel's asleep. Call back tomorrow." My blood ran cold. It was Alice, his secretary. The alcohol hit me harder, but nothing could numb the cruel reality. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, my eyes wide open, until the first rays of dawn crept through the blinds. The next day, Samuel called, his voice rough with sleep. "Grace, you called me last night?" "Don't overthink it. It was just a last-minute friends gathering. I drank too much, and I crashed at Alice's place." On the couch. Nothing happened. I didn't respond. Just hung up. We didn't speak for a week. He didn't come home. Then a bouquet of bright roses arrived at my office desk. I scoffed. Threw them straight into the trash. This was his routine. When I was upset, he'd give me the silent treatment, waiting for me to cave, waiting for me to apologize. A week would pass, and when I didn't break, he'd send roses, his peace offering, signaling he was ready to forgive me. And for 3 years, I had been the fool. The one who'd forgive him, no matter what, all because of a few flowers. I had been nothing more than a puppet, letting him pull my strings, completely disregarding my own dignity. I used to wonder why I never thought of escaping. Now I knew. I was so lost in my feelings, so blind, I didn't even recognize how little I valued myself. But now, I was tired. Those roses stirred absolutely nothing in me. That evening, as I was wrapping up work, Samuel appeared at my office entrance. He had never picked me up in 3 years. This was a first. I walked over, my voice flat. "What's the matter?" Perhaps my tone was too cold because he actually looked taken aback, a little awkward. I, who had always lowered my head and tried to please him, was done. He scratched his head, trying to mask his discomfort. "Last week was our anniversary. We planned a movie, a candlelight dinner. I'll make it up to you tonight." A cold smile touched my lips. "Anniversary? You missed it. Now you want to make up for it?" "No need." I said it flatly. "I don't think it matters that much. My ride's here." I turned, got into the car. Through the rearview mirror, I saw him standing there, hands in his pockets, looking lonely. The next morning, I noticed the light on in the general manager's office, dark for 2 months. Curiosity tugged at me. I walked over. To my shock, Samuel was there, focused on his computer. "Good morning," he said, glancing up. My brows furrowed. We worked for the same company, but he was at headquarters, I was at a branch. I never imagined he would be the new GM. Then I saw it, a new desk outside his office. So, he brought Alice with him. How wonderful. Not only was he here to keep an eye on me, but he was bringing his lover along. "Good morning," I replied neutrally, heading to my desk. As I walked, I overheard the whispers. "Did you see the new GM? Samuel, the VP from operations. He's so handsome." And his secretary, Alice, his rumored lover, came along too. "He's got it all, career and beauty enviable." Then, the hushed tones. I heard Samuel's married, to someone from our company. "Grace, our operations director." They fell silent as I approached. I sat down, tried to work. Then Alice, with her graceful steps, walked over. "Mrs. Brooks, Mr. Brooks asked you to come to his office." I nodded, followed her. Samuel stood up, closed the door behind us. "Just tell me if you need something," I said. He hesitated. "It's nothing, really. I just wanted to let you know the transfer was something I requested. I didn't get a chance to inform you." "And Alice coming with me?" "That was the CEO's decision." I kept my expression calm. Something was off. He'd never been this deferential. "This was headquarters' decision, Mr. Brooks. No need to inform me. If there's nothing else, I'll be going." Suddenly, he grabbed my wrist, his grip tight, frustrated. "I've explained everything patiently. What else do you want?" In the past, his lowly apology would have shattered me, made me cry, convinced me he was the best man in the world. But now, my heart was numb. I wouldn't be moved by such cheap theatrics. I didn't yell, didn't struggle. I just looked at him calmly. Like a deflated balloon, Samuel let go, his enthusiasm completely drained. He sighed deeply, looking helpless. I admit, I didn't tell you the whole truth that night. I was drunk, but I didn't stay at Alice's because I wanted to. She suddenly had a stomach ache, and I didn't feel right leaving her alone. I only said that to avoid making you overthink things. As for my transfer, it's because I wanted more time with you, Grace. When did things become like this between us? I remained silent, the air thick with uncomfortable tension. He recalled something, pulled a small, delicate box from his drawer. Here. You mentioned this was beautiful a while ago. I glanced at the Cartier diamond necklace inside. He'd always hated me wearing jewelry, calling it flashy. I was surprised he'd broken his own rule. But I had no intention of accepting it. Some things are only desirable in a specific moment. Once that moment passes, they lose all appeal. Just then, Alice entered. Seeing the situation, she feigned apology. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a file for Mr. Brooks to sign. I turned away as she placed the file on his desk. Oh, is this the new Cartier necklace? I've been wanting one for so long. Alice's words froze me. I quickly grabbed the box, handed it to her. If you like it, it's yours. As Alice took the box, Samuel snatched it back, his voice frighteningly cold. It's not for you. I watched Alice's joyful expression instantly fade to shock. I didn't pay attention to their argument. I just smiled slightly, turned, and walked out. That evening, I moved into the small apartment I'd bought for myself. It wasn't spacious or luxurious like Samuel's house, but it was mine. My own space, my own home, carrying only my traces. Plus, it was closer to the office. After 3 years of marriage, suddenly returning to single life felt strange. With Samuel, I'd wake early to make him breakfast, help him choose clothes, rush home to cook dinner. Now, all that was gone. No more sleepless nights worrying about him and Alice. My time had opened up. I felt a sense of lightness. At first, I worried he'd bother me, but I was overthinking. He hadn't asked about me at all. Occasionally, we'd cross paths at the office, just polite nods. I found it perfectly fine. Neither of us was interfering with the other's life. A month flew by. I dedicated my newfound freedom to work. Looking at the figures, my performance had doubled. Men, it turned out, only held me back from advancing my career. I even admired myself for not giving in, for not seeking reconciliation. It turns out I, Grace, can be self-centered too. I don't have to be anyone's doormat. Monday morning, our usual weekly meeting. My spot was always the first seat on the general manager's right. But today, Alice was there. I paused, irritated, and sat next to her. Everyone in the room noticed. She was a junior secretary, not even supposed to be at the meeting, let alone in my seat. Normally, the secretary just set up the room. What had gotten into Alice? Samuel glanced at her but said nothing. He'd silently approved her attendance. Usually, after Samuel introduced the topic, I'd report first. But this time, after he spoke, Alice, from my seat, launched into a long report about Samuel's schedule and the number of contracts he'd signed. The whole room was shocked. When did these things become part of our report? By the time it was my turn, I couldn't hide my displeasure. Samuel wasn't pleased either, though he kept it in check. After the meeting, Samuel waited until everyone left. Grace, stay behind. I need to talk to you. He closed the door. Before I could process, he pushed me against the wall. Are you ever going to stop? I glared at him. What did Mr. Brooks mean by that? Samuel was seething, his chest heaving. You know exactly what I meant. You moved out without a word, ignored me for over a month, and you're still not done. A cold laugh bubbled up. I thought he, lost in Alice's warmth, would have forgotten me. I was wrong. He'd been counting the days, waiting for me to beg for reconciliation. I stared at him silent. Samuel, I said, breaking the silence. Let's divorce. He looked at me, disbelief etched on his face. What did you say? I said, let's divorce. I'm willing to let you be with Alice. Suddenly, Samuel snapped. He grabbed my neck with both hands, his breath hot and furious in my ear. Is it because of those rumors you're going to divorce me, Grace? Are you out of your mind? I won't agree to this. His grip was tight. I coughed violently, struggling for air. It wasn't until someone knocked to come in and clean that he finally, reluctantly released me. I gasped, breathing heavily. Back at my desk, the memory of his rage lingered, leaving me shaken. From that day forward, Samuel insisted on driving me home every evening, loudly declaring to the whole office that I was his wife. At first, I tried to avoid him, turning him down. But he'd push the rideshare drivers away, leaving me embarrassed and helpless. After a few days, I gave in. He begged me repeatedly to move back in, but I remained firm. The home we'd shared for 3 years once held beautiful memories, but now only scars. Those happy moments had slipped away, never to be reclaimed. The day Samuel made his announcement, Alice confronted him, causing a huge scene, then took a week off. As for Samuel, he began extravagant efforts to win me back. He'd pick me up and drop me off daily, not just for special occasions. He bought my favorite breakfast, ensured I had afternoon tea, delivered fresh fruit to my desk. On weekends, he'd cook for me, surprisingly good, I admit. But in my heart, I felt nothing. Just emptiness. It all seemed like an act, a performance to make me feel something again. The truth was, I felt nothing. I was numb. A week later, another Monday. We were all in the meeting room, waiting for Samuel. But he didn't show. Alice wasn't there either. A twinge of confusion. Back at my desk, curiosity got the better of me. I called him. His voice was hoarse, tired. "Mr. Brooks, you missed the meeting. Are you coming later?" A pause. Then, softer, almost defeated, "Is work all you care about? Can you show some concern for me?" "Oh, are you unwell?" He coughed. "My lungs aren't right. Pneumonia, I think. Just ordered medicine online. Could you come over after work to keep me company?" I hesitated. "We'll see. If it gets worse, go to the hospital. Don't wait too long," I urged. After work, I had no intention of going. But Samuel called again. His pneumonia seemed worse, he said, asking me to take him to the hospital. I decided to go. Even if we weren't a couple, it felt right to help a colleague. When I rang the doorbell, Samuel quickly opened it, looking nothing like someone sick. Inside, the dining table was laid out with a lavish dinner, wine, roses. Seeing my surprise, he pulled out a chair. "I told you I'd make up for our anniversary. Please, Mrs. Brooks, allow me the honor today." He was dressed in a suit and bow tie, looking sharp. Honestly, I felt a flicker of emotion. But it was fleeting. If he'd done this 2 months ago, the outcome might have been different. Now, it was too late. I sighed inwardly, but didn't refuse. We quietly ate, sipped wine. Samuel's mood was anything but calm. He looked deeply into my eyes, then suddenly, with rapid breaths, pulled me into his arms, onto the sofa. I didn't understand why, but my body reacted unexpectedly. Maybe the alcohol, maybe our old connection. But just as I was on the verge of losing control, I felt something strange under the cushion. A thong. And it wasn't mine. Instantly, the heat between us was doused like cold water. Both of us froze. The alcohol wore off in an instant. Samuel's face turned pale. He nervously explained, "Grace, no, it's not what you think. This thing is just, save your explanation. You can have your fun." I slowly, calmly straightened my clothes, then stuffed the thing into his collar. I took a taxi home. That night, I realized I had finally given up. His calls flooded in, but I turned off my phone, pulled the blanket over my head, and fell into an exhausted sleep. From that moment, I completely cut off all communication, except for work. If he tried to drag me into his car, I'd call the police. If he showed up at my door, same. Scared by my resolve, he finally stopped. Alice returned to work. Our relationship, Samuel, Alice, and I, became strictly professional. I wasn't sure if he and Alice still kept in touch after work, but they were definitely more restrained around the office. Time passed. About a month later, a university classmate, Henry, who'd been abroad for years, announced he was coming back. Henry organized a reunion, invited me. We were in the same city, good friends. I casually checked. Neither Samuel nor Alice would be there. So I went. That evening, I wore a sleek black evening dress, did my makeup carefully. But operational data issues made me late. As I approached the private room, I heard loud voices. I walked toward the slightly ajar door, intending to find a quiet corner. But the scene inside froze me. Alice, in a form-fitting dress, fishnet stockings, was sitting on Samuel's lap, arms around his neck, sharing a passionate kiss. Below them, a group of men and women cheered, chanting, "Kiss, kiss." They were both clearly drunk. Alice puckered her lips, about to kiss him again. My sudden appearance froze everyone. Our classmates knew about the complicated relationship, but they also knew. I was Samuel's legal wife. When I walked in, Samuel and Alice snapped to attention, suddenly sober. Samuel tried to pull Alice off, but she pretended to be more intoxicated, clinging tightly, her eyes defiant as she looked at me. Henry, our class president, quickly stood up. "Grace, you're finally here. You're so late, we thought you weren't coming." I smiled lightly. "Well, everyone who shouldn't be here is here, so how could I not show up?" With that, I walked up to Samuel and Alice, took out my phone, and started recording. Why not kiss? This free show, I'd like to see it too. Samuel froze, his face contorting in irritation. He tried to swipe my phone. "Are you crazy?" he snapped, then forcefully shoved Alice off his lap. I put my phone away, pouted. Homage, what a buzzkill. The party ended on a sour note. The classmate who'd returned even apologized, drinking 3 shots, quite embarrassed. When I got home, I turned off the lights, sat on the couch, and cried my heart out. I began to reflect on these years of entanglement. Samuel and Alice had known each other since childhood. They were not just lovers, but childhood sweethearts, each other's first love. I, on the other hand, was the newcomer. Samuel came from a wealthy family, a typical rich kid. My family, the Brooks, had made their fortune from scratch. When I graduated, my father's company, Brooks, faced a financial crisis. They urgently needed $100 million. Alice's family was too ordinary to help. At that time, I had already been in love with Samuel for 4 years, even confessed to him, only to be rejected. I'd told my father about my feelings. He remembered. When Brooks faced trouble, he was approached for funding and immediately suggested a marriage between our families. Samuel's father naturally agreed. Perhaps in our parents' eyes, business interests outweighed everything. Marriage and the feelings of the next generation were just sacrifices. Right after graduation, Samuel and I got engaged. That night, my father transferred $100 million into Brooks' account. A few months later, we married. During this time, Samuel never showed resentment towards me. He didn't bring up Alice. His thoughts remained a mystery, but he was always kind, a competent husband, ensuring I was respected as Mrs. Brooks in public. The changes started 2 years ago. Alice, who had gone abroad to study, returned home earlier than expected. From that moment, Samuel and she rekindled their relationship, spiraling completely out of control. At first, I confronted Samuel, demanding to know why he'd lied. All I received was a cold, cruel response. Even though we're married, I've never loved you. Our marriage is merely a transaction. I only tolerated you to avoid causing loss to our families. But Alice's return destroyed whatever restraint I had left. Moreover, Alice had come back with clear intentions, directly applying to be his secretary. She was always by his side. With that closeness, it was only a matter of time before things went wrong. At one point, I considered holding onto the title of Mrs. Brooks. As long as I didn't back down, Alice would remain the secret mistress. For 2 years, I endured countless hardships. But now, I was tired. I no longer cared. If they were so eager for me to step aside, I would let them have it. But what confused me was why Samuel was still pretending. Even though I mentioned divorce, he refused. He kept trying to salvage our relationship. Was he afraid a divorce would ruin the business interests? If so, I had something to discuss. That evening, I decided to visit Samuel in his office. Let's have dinner tonight. I've made a reservation at your favorite restaurant, I said, taking a deep breath. Samuel, busy, looked up in surprise, his expression quickly changing to excitement. He snapped his laptop shut. It's time to leave anyway. Let's go. I'll drive. At the restaurant, I ordered his favorite dishes. His mood lifted as he ate, happily cutting his steak. He looked up. So, have you finally calmed down? He asked, teasing. I watched him quietly. Why won't you divorce me? Is it because you're worried about the impact on our family's interests? Samuel froze, his expression instantly cold. Are you asking this because you called me out for dinner? He shot back. Yes, this is important. If it's because of this, I suggest we involve both our parents. Samuel slammed his knife and fork onto the table, cutting me off sharply. Stop guessing. It's not about that. Don't bring it up again. I was startled. Why was he so sensitive? As I sat there, a phone call interrupted. Samuel immediately answered. Yeah, I'm eating. What's wrong? Feeling worse? I'll come over right away. After he hung up, he grabbed his coat and rushed out, not even sparing me a glance. A wave of frustration rose. He'd never acted this way in public. I guess the call was from Alice. I paid the bill and followed him in a cab. To my surprise, he didn't drive to Alice's house. Instead, he went to a high-end private hospital. Curiosity got the better of me. Was Samuel sick? He walked into the gynecology and obstetrics department, pushing open the door to an examination room. My heart sank. Why was he here? Was Alice pregnant? I hurried after a doctor, standing just outside the door. Through the gap, I saw Alice leaning against Samuel. The doctor was handing him a medical report. I was about to eavesdrop, but the doctor suddenly stood up and closed the door. I froze, relieved they hadn't seen me, and slipped away unnoticed. Standing at the hospital entrance, a fire of rage surged. Those two. How dare they? Behind my back, they'd gone as far as getting her pregnant, and yet he still wouldn't divorce me? What on earth was he dragging me through this for? From that day forward, Samuel and I were nothing more than colleagues, strictly business. Meanwhile, Samuel and Alice's time off became more frequent, often at the same time. It made sense. Alice was pregnant. Of course, Samuel would be involved in every appointment. Many colleagues noticed their strange behavior, especially the obvious tension between them. I often heard whispers, though they were careful to speak behind my back. One morning, the elevator door slid open. Alice. It had been days since I'd seen her. She stood there in a white dress clinging to her slim frame, pale skin almost ethereal. She looked more fragile, thinner. I wondered if she'd just become pregnant, no visible bump yet. As soon as she saw me, her body stiffened. She turned away abruptly, twisting her back, and sneered with clear disdain. The fury that had simmered in my chest for weeks, ever since I found out, flared up. Without thinking, I shot her a mocking smile, locking eyes. What's with the sneer? Are you enjoying being the other woman? Pregnant by a married man, does that make you proud? Alice's face twisted with disgust, her eyes flashing. Are you crazy? When did I ever get pregnant by a married man? I couldn't contain my bitterness. So you can do it but not admit it? I retorted with a cold laugh. Go ahead, tell me. I'll even help you out. I saw the fury rising in her eyes. Without warning, she raised her arm to shove me. But I was faster. I grabbed her arm and flung her aside. Just then, the elevator doors opened. Alice stumbled backward, crashing into the hallway. My heart skipped a beat. Before I could react, I rushed forward to catch her. But then, as if on cue, Samuel appeared. He grabbed Alice with surprising speed, pulling her into his arms. For a split second, I thought everything would be okay, that he might help her. Instead, he freed one hand and slapped me across the face. A resounding crack. The sting burned. My mind went numb with shock and anger. Grace, you're out of your mind, Samuel shouted, his voice filled with disbelief. Alice is in a weak condition, and you still dare to push her. I stood there, holding my cheek, my blood boiling. The anger I'd kept bottled up finally erupted. I pointed a trembling finger at Samuel and screamed, "Do you have no shame? You got your mistress pregnant and still have the nerve to defend her in front of me." Samuel's face froze, twisted with confusion. What did you say? I got whose belly big? Are you talking about Alice? You're insane. This is all in your head. I opened my mouth to tell him about the hospital visit, how I'd seen Alice there. But before I could speak, footsteps echoed. Employees trickled in, murmurs growing louder. The sight of the boss and executives arguing in the office entrance was out of place. I quickly bit my lip, feeling the weight of their eyes. Without another word, I sidestepped Samuel and Alice, my chest tight with pain, and made my way to my desk. Sitting down, I couldn't shake the suffocating feeling. My heart was heavy, confusion gnawing at me. If they were so in love, if Alice was really carrying his child, why couldn't they just let me go? Why did they need to rub it in my face? Was Samuel deliberately trying to humiliate me, his cruel way of making me watch his child born with his mistress by his side? The questions swirled unanswered as I sank deeper into hurt. The next morning, I made up my mind. The decision felt like a weight lifting, yet also like stepping into uncharted territory. I couldn't let Samuel or his indifference tether me any longer. I prepared the divorce agreement with deliberate precision, my fingers moving mechanically. Once done, I placed it on his desk, an unspoken challenge. I stood there, breathing in the cold air, trying to steady my nerves. I had no illusions about the battle ahead. If he found another excuse, I wouldn't let him. I was ready to fight for my freedom. But to my surprise, Samuel didn't hesitate. He glanced at the papers, signed without a word, and slid the pen back. The divorce was finalized the very next day. It was over. I could hardly believe how smoothly it went, but the relief was short-lived. The weight of what had just happened sank in. My life in that house, with those two repulsive people, had been suffocating. Wasting any more time was unbearable. I was done. Months ago, a competitor had offered me a GM position for a branch in another city, far from everything I knew, far from Samuel. At the time, I hesitated. Would he approve? Now, I didn't care. Without thinking twice, I emailed them, inquiring about the position, though I didn't expect much. To my surprise, they responded almost immediately. The next day, they flew to meet me. The interview was a whirlwind. Within hours, they made an offer. Start immediately. Everything moved so fast. My head spun, but no time for hesitation. I needed out. I knew I couldn't resign in person. Samuel would make a scene. So I emailed him. I called him afterward to confirm. When he answered, a long pause. Then, emotionless, he muttered. His indifference was suffocating. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a response, focusing on the future I was about to create in Shanghai. I quickly set up the new branch, my career taking off. The company was in the same industry as Samuel's, and the bitterness simmering inside found its outlet in competition. I made things difficult, targeting his resources, striving to outdo him. Each success felt like a small revenge. When I heard Samuel's business had dropped nearly in half over 6 months, a part of the frustration eased. Not that I enjoyed his failure, but it was a reminder I was no longer bound by his presence, no longer dependent on his approval. It had been half a year since we had any personal contact. I had no idea what was going on with that couple. I assumed my life would never cross paths with them again. Alice was probably about to give birth. My new life had nothing to do with them. Then, on New Year's Eve, everything changed. I'd come home to celebrate, looking forward to peace. But when I opened the door, there he was. Samuel. Standing at my doorstep. I froze, a cold wave of disbelief washing over me. What was he doing here? I didn't move. Mr. Brooks, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. Here to wish me a happy new year? No need. I'm not accepting guests. My words were as cold as the air. His face was worn, tired, like someone carrying a heavy burden. He stared at me, trying to find words, but there was nothing in his eyes but loss or regret. After a long silence, I broke it. Oh, by the way, I should congratulate you. You married Alice, didn't you? Became a father. The words came out spitefully, coated in bitterness. I watched his face drain of color, his breathing ragged, as if my words had struck him. The tension thickened. I felt a strange satisfaction, a small sense of justice. I stared at him, confused. What's wrong? Are you unwell? I asked, mock concern in my voice. His eyes were filled with deep sorrow and regret. Grace. His voice cracked. That's not the case. Alice, she passed away 2 months ago. It was advanced cervical cancer. The words hit me like a punch. I stood frozen, mind struggling to grasp the truth. The world blurred. What did you say? Alice is dead? When did she get cervical cancer? His face was a mask of pain, eyes downcast. He hesitated, as if the confession pained him. Finally, he spoke, voice thick with emotion. Last year, on our 3rd anniversary. I never told you the truth. That night, I wasn't drunk. It wasn't because she had stomach pains. The truth is, that night, she found out she had late-stage cervical cancer. A strange, nauseating guilt rose in my chest. I wanted to say something, anything, but my mouth was dry. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked, my voice shaking slightly. He let out a bitter, hollow laugh. His eyes, full of regret, looked at me with a quiet, resigned finality. Alice didn't want me to tell you. She said her last wish was for me to be by her side as her boyfriend. She didn't want my selfish actions to cause us to divorce, and she genuinely hoped we could stay out of each other's way quietly. The air felt thick. All I felt was confusion. I swallowed hard. I know you probably thought that before I divorced you, Alice was carrying my child, I said, the words bitter. And that I was following her to the maternity ward. But the truth is, I was with her for her cervical cancer checkups, not a pregnancy test. The truth hit me like a wave. I could see the subtle shift in his expression, the flicker of pain and sympathy. You can't blame her for always being hostile towards you, he said, his voice soft. After all, she loved me for so many years. But now everything is in the past. I just hope you can let go of your feelings and move on. His words hung in the air, heavy with finality. I saw sincerity, but also a quiet plea for forgiveness. I wanted to tell him I was still hurt, couldn't just move on. But the words stuck. His words hung like a dense fog. I stared at him, searching his eyes, once warm, now clouded with remorse, apology. It was unsettling, but for a fleeting moment, something stirred. Not forgiveness, but understanding. There and gone. So you specifically came to see me today to clear up this misunderstanding? I asked, my voice quieter, hesitant. His lips curled into a reluctant, strained smile. It's not just about that. His words faltered, eyes dropping, then meeting mine. I also wanted to ask if we could remarry. My parents have been scolding me for a year now. It caught me off guard. A stab of emotion. Memories of the divorce, the devastation, the lies, the deceit. The sharp ache of that final goodbye had never faded. Now he was asking for a second chance. I couldn't stop myself. Didn't you say Alice didn't want you to divorce me because of her selfishness? Why did you agree to the divorce later? Samuel froze, eyes locking onto mine. He didn't speak. The silence stretched. Then, low, barely a whisper, to be honest, don't blame me, but at that time, I really did think about burning all bridges. I thought maybe I could gather the courage to end things with you once and for all. After all, our marriage was just a transaction. I wanted to make it up to Alice before she passed. I wanted to give her the wedding of her dreams. His words hung heavy with regret. He sighed, shoulders slumped. That was my decision, and it had nothing to do with Alice. As his words sank in, something shifted. A strange sense of relief washed over me. The final piece of a puzzle. I exhaled slowly. Well then, I wish you well. You fulfilled the last wish of the woman you loved. His gaze held mine, but something unsettled me. A lingering emotion, uncertainty, regret. Then, after a long silence, he spoke again. But the reason I came today is that I want to remarry you. I froze. A slap. I stared, mind racing. Samuel, I stammered. You really caught me off guard. You said you needed courage to leave me. Since we're divorced, why remarry? I know you don't love me. His eyes, steady a moment ago, turned red. Because after Alice died, I realized I had fallen in love with you. His voice was raw. I blinked. Would you be willing to accept me again and try to start over? He reached into his pocket, pulled out a velvet box, dropped to one knee, holding out a diamond ring. The light caught it, sparkling. For a moment, my breath caught. His sincerity, the look in his eyes, almost convinced me. My resolve wavered. But then, reality seeped in. I gathered my thoughts, heartbeat steady. I met his eyes, shook my head slowly. I'm sorry. I can't accept. He looked up, face etched with disbelief. Why? Don't you love me anymore? A bitter, empty laugh escaped me. Samuel, from the time you reluctantly agreed to marry me to our entire marriage, you've been acting. You've played the role so well that I almost believed it. But you can't fool your eyes. There's never been any love for me. Haven't you noticed? Every time we look at each other, your gaze is unfocused, like you're somewhere else. But I've seen the way you look at Alice. It's different. Intense, passionate, deep, as if you want to see straight into her soul. And that's the truth of it, Samuel. His breath hitched. And you and Alice, don't try to deny it. You didn't just start your relationship a year ago when she was diagnosed. You've been involved since you were teenagers. When she came back 2 years ago, everything reignited. Your feelings for her didn't begin when she was sick. They never truly went away. I took a step back, heart steady. And now what you call suddenly realizing you love me is nothing more than a habit. You've gotten used to having me around. Now that Alice is gone, you're just feeling empty without me, right? You miss the familiarity, but it's not love. Samuel's face went pale, confusion turning darker. So you think I never really loved you, he whispered. A bitter, joyless chuckle. Yes, Samuel. You never loved me from the start, and you never will. What you feel now is just the lingering memory of habit combined with the pressure from your parents who have never let you breathe. But I don't want to go into it any further. Take care of yourself, and please don't come looking for me again. My voice was calm, but my heart was heavy. I turned, and without looking back, closed the door softly. Not all love can be rekindled. Some things are better left in the past. After the new year, I boarded a flight to Ocean City, a mix of excitement and anticipation swirling inside me. As the plane ascended, the engine's hum became a steady backdrop to the whirlwind of thoughts. My career was about to take a fresh start, and with it, I was ready to leave behind the weight of the past. Life, after all, isn't just about love. There are so many other dreams to chase. The air in Ocean City felt different, brisk, filled with the promise of new beginnings. The year passed in a blur of work and growth. Then I heard the unexpected news. Samuel, of all people, had entered a monastery. The news hit me like a sharp breath, surprising, strangely distant. His branch office, once bustling, was now without a leader, his company in disarray. Part of me wondered what drove him to such a drastic change, but I quickly pushed the thought aside. His choices no longer affected my life. I reported this to my company headquarters, and within days, they decided to acquire Samuel's company. A quiet satisfaction settled over me as I watched the corporate wheels turn, knowing I had played my part. The acquisition was swift, and soon, the leadership of Samuel's once thriving office was handed to someone new, someone from my company. Thanks to my performance and the rapid growth I'd helped cultivate, I was promoted. The offer to transfer to group headquarters came as a surprise, but it was welcome. Vice President, a clear acknowledgement of my hard work. It was a triumph, not just for the title, but because it marked a new chapter. I settled into my new role, both exciting and overwhelming. My office, perched on the 25th floor of a sleek glass building, offered a stunning panoramic view of the city skyline. I'd often pause at the window, gazing out, lost in thought. The city's hum was a reminder of the world I was now a part of, and a quiet reassurance that I had taken the right path. Days turned into weeks. The work was demanding, but fulfilling. Headquarters was a hive of activity, always thick with the energy of people pushing themselves. My team was talented, and for the first time, I felt truly valued for my abilities. One late afternoon, sifting through reports, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and froze. A message from Samuel. Grace, can we talk? My fingers hovered. My heart raced. I hadn't heard from him in months. Why no? Why after all this time, when everything in my life was finally coming together? I stared at the message, torn between curiosity and the painful memories. Finally, I exhaled, put my phone down, forced myself to focus. But the thoughts lingered. I had worked so hard to put him and the past behind me, to carve out a future that didn't revolve around his mistakes and lies. The idea of him showing up again felt like a disruption to the delicate balance I'd built. The next morning, my assistant knocked. Grace, there's a Mr. Brooks here. He says it's urgent. A chill swept over me. Samuel, standing in front of my office door. I hadn't seen him in person for months, but the familiar, almost magnetic pull was gone. What remained was a faint echo. He looked different, tired, older, shadows under his eyes, more lines on his face. Grace, he said softly, a vulnerability I hadn't heard before. I know you probably don't want to see me, and I wouldn't blame you. But I need to apologize for everything. His words hung in the air. I swallowed, suppressing conflicting emotions, anger, resentment, a strange aching sadness. Samuel, I finally said, my voice steady but cold. You have no idea what you put me through. No apology will undo that. You had your chance. He took a step closer, his eyes searching mine, desperate for a sign of reconciliation. I know I hurt you, he admitted, his voice breaking. But I've changed, Grace. I'm not the same person anymore. What happened with Alice, it was a mistake. I was confused, and I lost sight of what really mattered. I took a deep breath. He was still the same, still trying to make me believe his words could fix everything. But I wasn't the same. I was stronger now, independent. I'd learned to rely on myself. I'm glad you found clarity, Samuel, I said quietly, meeting his gaze. But my life has moved on. I've moved on. I could see the hurt in his eyes, but there was no turning back. The woman who had once clung to him, waiting for him to choose her, was long gone. In her place was someone who understood that life, with all its twists and turns, could be beautiful even without him. With one last lingering look, Samuel turned and walked away, disappearing into the elevator. I stood there, heart heavy with a mix of relief and regret. The rest of the day passed in a blur, my thoughts drifting back to that moment. But as the hours went by, the weight lifted. I had made peace with my past. Samuel's appearance only confirmed he was a chapter one had closed long ago. No matter how hard he tried to open it again, the story had already been written. As I sat at my desk later that evening, gazing out at the city lights twinkling below, I realized that the future was finally mine. And for the first time in a long time, I was content with the direction it was taking.